Hide and Seek is another horror book. I kind of like The Girl Next Door, as I said in my last video. I didn't want to leave it. As you know, Jack Ketchum, this sick freak who wrote The Girl Next Door, he's an accomplished author. However, this book was kind of disappointing. So, on the back, only this part is the synopsis. So I'm gonna read this to you. Hide and Seek is a book about games. Reckless, dangerous games. Games you might even want to play yourself if you're with the right people. But you shouldn't. Not ever. So this book starts out with our narrator, Dan. Dan lives in Dead River, which is a small town where everybody knows each other and no one ever gets out, according to Dan. And he works there with his friend Rafferty. And I think my house is haunted because I hear like doors slamming and footsteps and shit. No one's up here. That or the house is falling apart. Anyway, if I capture it, I will show you guys. But yeah, he works with his friend Rafferty, who I have a lot to say about. But Dan meets these 3 rich kids who go to Dead River for vacation. And they are Casey, Kim, and Stephen. I'm being haunted, I'm pretty sure. That's fine. Stephen and Kim are together and they're both friends with Casey. And Casey is very rebellious. She takes a lot of risks. She does some illegal stuff. She gets naked in public a lot. You guys can hear that, right? I think I'm gonna stop. No one's here. I'm getting scared. But I'm trying to stay on topic. Kim and Stephen, they're together. Casey takes a lot of risks, does a lot of illegal stuff, gets naked in public a lot. So does Kim, by the way. Like, there's one review on the back that says that the characters, believable characters. I don't feel that way. I have never met people or heard of people like Kim and Casey. Stephen is okay. So, this book was kind of disappointing, as I said. The writing is good, the technique's there, just like the last one. I feel like I'm not really into horror books. I haven't read much, but I also read The Shining by Stephen King, and I was also kind of disappointed. You know, if you watch the movie, it's and you know, horror movies in general, it's kind of scary from almost the beginning to the end. And I feel with these books, it gets scary near the end, and before that, it's just getting to know the characters, setting the scene, all that. But it's not scary yet, you know, and I want to be scared. When I read a horror book, I want it to feel like I'm watching a horror movie, or to feel like I'm reading a really long creepypasta. But this book didn't scare me, like, at all, and I get scared very easily. I couldn't sleep for like a week after I read the creepypasta Jeff the Killer for the first time. But this book just, it didn't really deliver. I think the game was introduced like page 61 or something, but the horror began at like page 114, and this book has 173 pages, so it was really near the end that it started becoming scary, and before it really wasn't. yeah, let's just go right into getting to know Casey. She's the interesting character. And it's just like the girl next door. It's all through the eyes of a bystander, in this case, Dan. We were hardly aware of them at first. Rafferty was a lot more interested in Lydia Davis lying on a towel a few feet away, and I had my eye on a couple of tourist girls. Occasionally the wind would slide down off the cliffs and pull the music from their radio in our direction, but that was all. The beach was pretty crowded, and there was plenty to look at. Then I saw this girl walk by me to test the water, just a glimpse of her face as she passed. The water was much too cold, of course. Not even the little kids were giving it a try. You wouldn't find much swimming here till late July or August. I watched her shiver and step backward when the first wave rolled over her feet. The black bikini was pretty spectacular. Somehow she'd already mentioned a good deep tan. Where I sat, I could see the goosebumps. I watched her step forward. The water was up to her calves by then. Rafferty was watching too. More guts than brains, he said. I mentioned that she was also beautiful. That too. And I wrote in my notes right here. Page 13, first seeing Casey, which is what just happened. Page 20, stealing a car with Casey. Basically, Casey dives into the water. It's way too cold, she's the only one in. Then, like the stalker he is, decides to follow Casey. Casey was already waiting for him, because Casey is all-knowing. I don't know. As I said, I don't find these characters believable at all. But Casey knew that Dan was following her, and she's waiting for him. And they get into a car. She asks Dan to drive her home. And then it turns out that she doesn't even know who the car belongs to. They just stole a car. So, the hide and seek part. It's the game that they play. They play hide and seek in an abandoned building. The Crouch plays. Now it's explained by Rafferty. And I'm going to say more about Rafferty. I hate Rafferty as a character. But it's explained by Rafferty that the Crouch place is a house where two people, Ben and Mary, lived. And they had a lot of dogs. And they couldn't pay for the house anymore. So they had to leave. And the police found a lot of dogs there, starving, dying, some had eaten each other. It was just a mess. And the house was said to be haunted. So Casey, who likes to take risks, says, let's go play hide and seek in that house. So that's the game. Another thing about this book and about Jack Ketchum, I feel, I might be wrong about this, but this is how I feel after having read two of his books. I feel like there's a lot of gratuitous nudity, gratuitous violence, just for shock value. And he's a credited writer, but that's how I feel reading his books. So we have an example of some gratuitous nudity. They get nude a lot, which is fine if it makes sense for the plot, but they don't really have to do it. Casey said that Kim's straw hat looked like something out of American by way of Kate Hepburn. Steve picked it up with peasant girl jokes and farm girl jokes, most of which centered on Kimberly's ample breasts and thighs, her most conspicuous features. Kim counted with references to the weekend orgy between Casey and me, and the whole thing got pretty tasteless, pretty scatological. We did plenty of laughing. Finally, Casey made some comment about the inevitability of a discussion of Kimberly's breasts in any social gathering in which Kimberly was a part, and Kim pulled off the big white-brimmed And after that, Casey does this as well, so you have two half-naked girls in the car. They do this a lot. I feel like, they don't really need to do it for the plot. Another example of just like doing things for shock value is the story of how Casey's brother died. Casey's brother, Jimmy, died when he was very young. And here's what happened. Casey was being raped by her father and her brother's father. There was blood everywhere. It was the first and last time her dad did that, and she still lives with her dad. But her father raped her, and there was blood everywhere, and her little brother Jimmy walked in. After seeing the bloodbath, he ran out, tripped over the family dog, and fell off the stairs, and that's how he died. Because it was too sad to keep the dog around, of course they had to get rid of the dog as well. Now this doesn't matter for the plot at all. They could have deleted that scene, Jack could have deleted this scene, and the book would be the same. But it's explained anyway. And I feel like that's just to give the book like a scary feel or to shock the reader. But for me it's kind of just annoying. Like, why did I read that? Another thing that happens, I'm getting really tired talking about this book. Casey pushes Stephen off a rock. Stephen needs 7 stitches. This needed to happen for the plot. In the end, when everything got scary, he needed to have like a bad hand that he couldn't really use. It kind of establishes Casey as a bit of a crazy character, but nothing like that ever happens again. Casey isn't that crazy in the end, so again, we didn't need that to happen like that. So, Rafferty. We're gonna listen to a bit of Rafferty, the friend. Ben and Mary's ghosts. Could be. You sound like you've got more. I do. Did you know they were imbeciles? You mean crazy? No, imbeciles. It's a pretty ugly story, actually. It seems that when the bank called in their mortgage money, they had a town meeting about it. See, how Ben knew was farming, and he was pretty bad at that. But there was no possibility of either of them doing anything else for a living. So somebody came up with the bright idea of having the town pay off the mortgage. It was only a little over 1,000. And they figured it would cost them a whole lot more than that, just in bookkeeping and whatnot, to keep them on the dole for 30, maybe 40 years in order to pay off and let them keep the place. In the basement, Shawbombers has in a couple of places the foundation sitting right beside some open spaces in the seawall, tunnels, erosion or whatever. So that's Rafferty explaining the Crouch Place some more, giving very important plot details and foreshadowing. And I feel like that's all Rafferty is there for. The only role Rafferty really has is explaining things, giving exposition. He's never explains a character. I know nothing about Rafferty except that he's Dan's friend and that he knows a lot of things that pertain to the plot of this book. And that's all. Rafferty is not mad at all when Dan goes to spend all his time with his new friends. Rafferty just doesn't care. Rafferty isn't really fleshed out as a character, is what I'm trying to say. It feels like he was written in just to give exposition, and that's it. And that really annoys me, because in the end, after all the scary shit has happened, which I'm not going to spoil too much, in case you do want to read this book, it's not bad. But Rafferty comes back after all this scary stuff happened, just to give more exposition, and that's where the book ends. And when I saw Rafferty again, after not having seen him for like 100 pages, I got really annoyed. I'm like, okay, well, he's just here to give the reader some information. He's not a character. He's just the author explaining things that still need explaining. And that's all Rafferty's there for. So that's a bit annoying. So, yeah, I'm just gonna read you guys a bit of that. Rafferty, I literally wrote down page 161, Rafferty being forced on the reader, plus some last exposition on page 163. Fun. I was sedated, hospitalized, treated for the leg wound and assorted cuts and bruises. Rafferty came by. It was awkward, but all I could do was tell me how sorry he was and shake his head in wonderment. I think he felt a little responsible, as it all went back to that day we went through the garbage cans together. I tried to reassure him, though maybe in a way it did. Now this was not about Rafferty. The author just needed Rafferty to be there. And then I learned from Rafferty that all they'd ever found of Ben Crouch was a set of footprints leading down the beach which stopped in the dark wet sand at the tide line. Drowned? Everyone seemed to think so. I asked Rafferty. Sure, they know, everybody does, but the guy living there is just a caretaker. He'll be there 2 or 3 months tops, while the surveyors and execs do their work. Do you know who owns that property now? Central Main Power. The town bought it from the bank just like everybody wanted them to do for Ben and Mary. Then CMP bought it from the town. Scuttlebutt is that what we're going to have there is a waste dump from the nuclear plant, Rissica said. Ain't that a killer? Nobody knows for sure, of course, but God knows it would be just like the town fathers. Bring some industry into town, some jobs. And of course, 10 years down the road, you kill the fish. He paid some serious attention to his bear. The house was well over 100 years old, you know. So what we have here is it's the end of the book. There are still some questions that you can have. What happened to Ben? What happened to the house? Basically the only questions you can have. And Rafferty answers them, even though we haven't seen him for like the last 100 pages. I'm just kind of annoyed about Rafferty, you know. I think though that Stephen is a great character. I love Stephen. As I said, Stephen is amazing. Stephen is the most believable of the characters, I feel like. He also goes to play hide and seek, and he just does it to appease Casey, because Casey can get really annoying when she doesn't get her way. But Stephen cares for her greatly. So he goes to play hide and seek in the house. Now Dan is it. He has to go find them. And he already knows that Stephen is not going to hide. He's going to sit at the one beautiful place looking out over the sea. So he first goes to Stephen and finds him there, and they just have a talk, you know, with the bear. He's just... That's how you expect an adult to react. I think they're like, I don't know, 20 years old maybe. That's how you expect a 20-year-old to react when he's forced to play hide and seek in a haunted house. So I think that Stephen is a great character. There are some places where the writing is really good. There are some places where Jack Ketchum really intrigues the reader. And one particular way of writing about the scary part that actually kind of unnerved me. Let's see if I can find that. 125. And that's why I'm gonna end this then. In the match light, I had seen it well enough. A rough circular hole broken through the wall, no more than 2 or 3 feet in diameter. Room to crawl through or out of, but no more. I followed the current of air, the damp scent of it, slowly. I approached it like the doorway to hell. I knew she'd gone inside. The smell wouldn't bother her, not for the short duration it would take for me to find her. The darkness, the smell, the fear, all that would make her more attractive. You fool, I thought, you damn fool. Make me mistaken. I lit a match. I examined the opening. It was a tunnel cut or scraped through the foundation. The clock was angled in such a way that standing, that and a pile of newspapers hid it partially from view. Lying to one side was the old metal pocket. As that what Casey had tripped over the sound I'd heard upstairs. I pushed away the papers and leaned inside. I looked more closely. I saw the broken concrete heaped to one side, as though the hole had been dug from inside the tunnel. Beyond the foundation work, the tunnel led back a few feet through solid rock and then turned a corner. said the rest of it was blind, its depth unknowable. I didn't want to go in there. It seemed to know two things about it instinctively. There was something dead in there and something else alive. I could smell the death. Whatever was alive wasn't just Casey. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. The match went out. I lit another, cupping it against the breeze. Case. Holding the match in front of me, I took a deep breath and held it in my lungs and worked my way carefully into the hole. It died before I'd gone 2 feet. I lit 3 of them together and got almost to the corner before they died too. The wind was stronger now. In the dark it seemed thicker, seawater damp. The rocks above and below me breathed moisture. My throat was bone dry. There was something alive out there, something alive on the wind beyond my beam of light. I listened to it and I knew it was listening to me. It wasn't that there was any sound, just a presence, but a powerful one. Something that told me I dared not call out to her again, dared not move forward or even beg. I froze. Whatever it was would be happy to kill me. I knew that. I knew it on some basic animal level. I did something purely instinctive. I think it saved my life. I doused the light. So that was really good. That actually kind of scared me. But the ending is a bit disappointing, I feel like. But have read for yourself. I'm not gonna spoil the ending or what happens in the tunnel. So if you want to try it, you can. And that'll be it for me. Okay, book. Not all that scary, but maybe I just don't get horror books. Because, as I said, even with Stephen King, I found the book kind of boring. And he's like the king of horror, so it's probably just that I don't understand how to read horror books. Well, that was it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that. Right now I have, at the time of recording, 2 other book reviews up. I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by, this is so bad, I always forget, Joanne Green. And The Girl Next Door, also by Jack Ketchum. I will see you